Welcome to the Frontier Leader Show. Today, Martin is speaking to Jim Spignardo.
This is probably the biggest change they'll have ever faced in their organization's history. Again, it's fundamentally transforming the way business happens and gets done. And so what I tell our customers as well, that like myself, I could probably not have imagined this title that I have existing 5 years ago. But as an organization that is intending to use this technology to transform their business, if they don't have someone whose job description or title includes AI today, then they should know no more than 12 months from now.
Hello and welcome to the Frontier Leader Show. I'm Martin Wheatley, and each week I speak to leaders, coaches, practitioners and technologists working out what good leadership looks like in an AI-shaped world. While you still have the app open, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode. And if you want some practical starting points for leading with AI, I have a growing number of resources available at theaileaderlab.com. The link will be in the show notes. But today we are speaking to Jim Spignardo. Jim is the Director of Cloud Strategy and AI Enablement at ProArch, a global technology consulting and IT services firm. Jim has over 25 years IT experience spanning network engineering, cloud management, cybersecurity, and strategic consulting. His work as ProArch's AI enablement leader sees him working with non-profits to global enterprises, increasingly focusing on helping them operationalize AI within their organizations. Jim has also published countless articles on LinkedIn, which I do frequently read, and is also an author of a book released in March 2026 titled The AI Turning Point, which we'll come on to in just a second. But Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martin. It's great to be here.
Good. So thank you for your time. Can you just give us a quick overview of, just a quick background on who you are, what you do, and what your main focus is at the minute?
Yeah, so my main focus right now is in our first fiscal year this year, we kind of reorged at ProArch, and now I sit on our innovation team where we're really leaning heavily into helping organizations with their AI strategies. And that includes the development of our own intellectual property, our own AI platforms, solving, I would say, very complicated types of challenges in specific industries, but also primarily my focus, which is working with organizations that are just getting started and need to understand what needs to be in place to ensure that you have a successful AI foundation. And also to treat this more of a cultural shift than sort of a purchase of a new software, a new tool, similar to, hey, we bought the latest version of Adobe Express or something like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And is your work, I know you mentioned there about building your own IP and tools, is your work mainly around Microsoft 365 and Copilot?
Primarily. Although, we also are a Fabric featured partner, so we also focus on the data journey and the data maturity for organizations because we do see those inextricably linked.
Yeah,
and so we do a lot of work there, as well as with Azure AI Foundry. Mm-hmm. And really, when we talk about Foundry, it's opening up the world to just about every model that exists out there and every capability. So, although from an end user productivity standpoint, our major play is Microsoft 365 Copilot. I would say beyond that, we're fairly agnostic.
Yeah. Okay. And just coming to your book, The AI Turning Point: What Breaks, What Survives, and What Finally Has to Change at Work. So, firstly, congratulations for getting that out at the end of March.
Thank you.
It's no small feat writing a book,
right?
So, just give us an overview of what the book is and what prompted you to write it.
Yeah, what prompted me to write it was I have a very strong interest in business process and process improvement and understanding the integrations of the systems and the people within organizations. And so this kind of inflection point with AI was an eye-opener for me and my organization, a lot of our customers, about how we need to stop dragging the broken and complicated things that exist in our businesses forward instead of finally addressing them and assigning ownership to those things and actually breathing life into them or speaking them out into the ether so that they can be addressed. Because the reality is you can't just slap AI on systems that have not been optimized and modernized. You will quickly discover the gaps in those systems. And, unfortunately, a lot of organizations turn around and point their finger at AI and say it's the failure of the tools, when in reality, they never really addressed the underlying workflows, work streams, work processes. Probably didn't have ownership, weren't well defined, dealt with messy and complicated or outdated data. So all of those things get addressed in this, and it's more of I try and make it very approachable to people at all levels. My wife actually read it, and she's in public health, and she kind of said to me, "This is more of a business book than an AI book."
Yeah.
Because it takes you on a journey in this fictitious company and how they're wrestling with this fundamental shift at their organization and how to operationalize AI. And there are certain personalities at different levels, and what these individuals are asked to do to kind of compensate for the defects of the organization instead of actually addressing them. So I also try to provide some practical takeaways at the end of each chapter, things that you can go back as a leader in your organization or an information worker in your organization and actually institute some form of change to kind of help you in your journey.
I mean, it sounds interesting because, I've certainly been in organizations where they've got that much legacy technical debt with different, ERP systems. And, the can just gets kicked firmly down the road because with a manual person, human doing the job, they find workarounds, they pull it all together, and nobody really sees the problem, do they? But then when you put AI on top of it, it just amplifies. I know it's a bit of a cliche. It just amplifies what's there, but whether it's good or it's bad,
right? There's usually one individual in the organization that has the astuteness to understand the problem. They just usually don't have the authority or power to make those changes, and so that character exists too. Right. Give that character a voice as well. So
it's like one lady in accounts who always runs the one spreadsheet that the whole company runs off, or whatever it is.
Which has 1,000 links to a bunch of other spreadsheets.
Yeah. All updated when she presses F9 on a Monday morning. Yeah, absolutely. So how has yours and ProArch's kind of journey been with, because you guys have had to gone through exactly the same when Copilot first came on the scene. How did you manage your way through that?
Yeah, and I actually was thinking about this the other day because I'm actually working on a second book. If I tried to go back and look at what my day used to look like and how I actually got from the time I sat down in my chair to the time I logged off at night, what it looks like today versus what it looked like 3 years ago is so dramatically different.
Yeah.
But being a technology company, obviously we have some advantages there. Being a company that works constantly with projects, we do have kind of more of a structured approach to how we get things done. So we recognized how incredibly powerful this technology was going to be early on. Something that I kind of took to fairly quickly. And we recognized that we needed a very formalized program within our organization to ensure that our users were literate and understood how to effectively use these tools. But we also needed to make sure that it would stick and that we were measuring outcomes and ensuring that we were trying to solve problems instead of just taking the next new shiny thing and letting people play with it. Very intentional about how we are going to use it to transform our business. So that meant meeting with the stakeholders of various teams and departments and talking about what are the things that make their work, I call them the 3Ds, dull, draining, and distracting, right? And how do we map those use cases out and effectively integrate them into your workflows today, and then measure the outcomes and actually show that we're making a return on investment here. And I have to report every single month to our executive team those metrics. And something I'm very proud of because we, in the very early days, we were seeing a few $1,000s in assisted value, which kind of matched the number of licenses and seats we had. We would continue to scale because we could continue to show that and demonstrate that ROI to the point where we have 160 licensed users out of a company of about 400 individuals and continue to scale as well. but the assisted value has gone from a few $1,000s a month to something on the order of $75,000 a month now.
Right. Okay. Wow.
So we're now approaching almost $1 million a year in assisted value with these tools.
And that's value created just as a result of using these tools. This wasn't previously in the business, basically.
Absolutely.
Before that.
Right. That's time saved. That's, revenue that's, been, we've generated from faster pipelines in our sales force, quicker turnarounds, more consistency in our deliverables. I can go on and on, but yeah.
Yeah. It's an important point though, because the big question on a lot of people's, certainly from a CFO perspective, is prove to me the ROI before we go out and spend however much on Copilot licenses or whatever. So how do you handle that conversation with a client to explain how you can show effective ROI, especially when it's early on in the adoption?
Yep. And I go back to the business process, right? So understand what your people do.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably core and fundamental for first. And there's a lot of times when you'd be surprised a manager of a group of individuals or an exec level person doesn't even know the tasks that individuals do within a specific team. Map those out, map out the pain points, and then make sure that you can establish baselines as to what does the effort look like today. And that's also data that is missing from a lot of organizations. Not taking the time to understand this process, which we find to be integral to our business, is taking way longer than it should, or it's consuming too much of our revenue, or whatever the case may be. So if you don't have those baselines, establish those baselines, come up with your scenarios to address them, and then go back and examine how much impact you've had. And that's kind of give you that ROI. And I tell people too, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? We're not looking for perfection here. If you have to estimate what the effort is, and not every metric needs to be quantifiable too. You have to lead with quantifiable outcomes and metrics, but qualitative matters too. If people are happy, if you have less employee turnover, those things actually go a long way too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know the BCG report that came out in June 26th, you've probably seen it, but there was something specifically, I can't remember the numbers in it, but there was an element specifically in there about happiness at work. I'm sure there was some kind of joy at work, maybe it was titled or something, as a result of AI, which is great that they are monitoring that, because like you say, I mean, it is all too much a focus that it needs to be a specific number accurate to the, to anything.
And those anecdotal stories, are really kind of the things that drive me sometimes. I know it's always exciting to show a spreadsheet of facts and figures and go, look at us, we're doing fantastic. But to hear from someone's own voice about how they've gained confidence in their work, or they feel better about the quality of what they're producing, or that they feel like they have more ability to stand up on their own and find their own answers and resolve their own issues, instead of constantly kind of having to tap others on the shoulder. Those are the stories that hearten me, right? We still have to focus on the facts and figures, but those are the stories I really like to hear. Yeah,
no, it is. I was working with someone similar, and they used, it wasn't Copilot co-work, it was just co-work in Claude, and the first time they used that just to organize the files on the desktop that they've been praying off for years, it was like a revelation had been unlocked. And then all of a sudden they're building dashboards and all. And, it's nice to see that unlock in someone when the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It is rewarding, I must admit. So I can completely agree with you on that one. And when we look at ROI, obviously we need to also look at the kind of, not the flip side, but the governance around the data, the process, the security, and ultimately the trust with the team in using it. How do you go about walking a client through that and making sure there's a decent.
And again, we'll go back to the term intentionality, right? So we start with the fact that we tell folks that governance is there to protect the organization, but not to shackle the creativity and the efficiency gains that you're seeing. So one thing that I actually have a governance engagement with one of our customers this afternoon. We lay out a framework of what you should have established within your organization to guide you through this journey. So that includes, we very strongly believe in having some sort of governance committee or council or whatever you want to call it, of stakeholders within the organization who are going to own the outcomes of this transformation. Typically, that's folks from the security team, it's folks from the IT team, it's folks from HR, it's folks from legal, and together you kind of establish the direction of the organization. You're the group that drafts and publishes the AI usage policy to establish guardrails and guidelines for the organization. Representative in the security team, their role there is to look at the risk, evaluate the risk, and make sure that you have proper controls in place to minimize that risk and get the visibility you need into the use of these tools, because that, I would say, is a tremendous challenge for security teams out there. I don't want to de-emphasize the fact that, shadow AI is everywhere. And, the first thing you need is to make sure you understand what people are using. But then the other part of the governance council or governance group needs to be establishing direction of where you want to see the organization go long term, and then how are you providing the tools and the skills to your teams to make sure that they are successful. So we have a firm belief in standing up a center of excellence where you have a champions program, you do regular ongoing training with your teams. It starts with the onboarding process to make sure that everyone has a foundational AI knowledge and skill set. All of those things we bring to our engagements with our customers through our AI enablement programs. And we help them plot out a framework so they don't have to kind of develop all that themselves. And we give them lots of different tools to use so that they can get started. And, at some point they probably can dispense with those and kind of take it their own way. Many organizations that, find that helps them accelerate this process and keep them on course.
Yeah, because I bet a lot of the time the hardest question is, what's my first step that I need to take with this? And this kind of thinking around setting up the governance board and who help coordinate this across the company. And this kind of comes back to the whole AI is taking my role perspective, which I genuinely don't sign up to, certainly not at the minute. But all these other roles and responsibilities weren't there. They're not necessarily anyway, certainly in companies that have never used AI, they weren't there. So this is a new avenue that people are having to think about, aren't they? So are you seeing companies easily change to that kind of operating rhythm? And no,
it's tough. It's change is hard. Yeah. And a lot of organizations, this is probably the biggest change they'll have ever faced in their organization's history. Again, it's fundamentally transforming the way business happens and gets done. So what I tell our customers as well, that like myself, I could probably not have imagined this title that I have existing 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But as an organization that is intending to use this technology to transform their business, if they don't have someone whose job description or title includes AI today, then they should know more than 12 months from now, right? There should be someone in the organization whose main purpose, or at least the majority of their time, is spent governing and directing and guiding this ship for AI. And we tell folks that doesn't have to be, an FTE. It doesn't have to be a full-time individual. It could be someone who takes on new responsibilities in their existing role. Although make sure you actually give them time to work on these things. But it could also be someone you outsource. For many small organizations, it's not practical to hire a, 6+ figure individual whose goal is to just lead AI strategy.
And just coming back slightly onto the whole guardrails data piece, as we kind of touched on already, there's always, firms have often seemingly an infinite amount of data that's sat on their SharePoints, on their directories or whatever. How do you go about safeguarding and making sure that you can you can build the agents or the AI processes, whatever, securely in a way that it doesn't pull in vast amounts of data, just from a practical point of view for somebody in a Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah. Luckily, there's a lot of great controls within
Mm.
the Microsoft ecosystem. So one thing we say that if you're starting a pilot and you don't have confidence in your permission structure, limit to which sites that Copilot can actually query. If you're not confident in people pulling information from the web, there's ways to turn that off. If you're confident, but you want them to stay away from certain sites, Microsoft just announced this week that you can actually include specific domains that are blacklisted from Copilot using. Apart from that, as part of our engagements as well, we go through a data risk review and we show them where sensitive information is living based on their industry. So if they're a healthcare firm, we show them all the potential PHI that's sitting in their estate and give them some options of what they should be doing about that. You're typically starting with policy and then controls. We also suggest and heavily suggest that they lean into the tools that already exist. So archiving and retention. Get the old data out of the system. Move it. If it's old and it hasn't been touched in a while, just use the tools that exist. Don't spend more than you need to. And again, it's not going to be deleted. It's in the archive. Someone needs to go get it. Great. But Copilot will not look at the archive. That will improve the quality of the output that you're receiving. Lastly, I would say if you're building agents, be very specific about the knowledge sources that you're using. Make sure those knowledge sources have been vetted, approved, and contain good data, and limit your agent to only using those sources of data. There are, controls in there that say, if this agent can only use the data that I give it, nothing else.
Yeah, some good points there, absolutely. And especially on the agent side, you don't want it running off and pulling in information it shouldn't or doesn't need access to.
There's a simple toggle in the Copilot in Agent Builder that says, use all available websites. First thing I tell folks to turn off, and if they've supplied the appropriate knowledge sources, then turn on the button that says only use sources that I've given you.
And what's from your perspective? You wrote on LinkedIn, which I liked. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, about on Copilot Cowork being able to see your credits as you're using them on a dashboard or something. Yeah, well, I'm sure it did because it's unless you've got admin access, it's really hard to see what's been used. I'm guessing. I mean,
yeah.
And are you seeing a lot of companies now starting to adopt Cowork specifically? Because I mean that has, in my opinion, has transformed the benefit of Copilot significantly.
Here's what I'd say: Microsoft probably needed to do a better job of advertising that capability and really comparing it against what others have in the market. Because the truth is, once a company uses it, they never want to give it up. We're part of the Frontier program. We use Cowork since, I guess it's been over 3 months before they went to the usage-based model. And our users were very apprehensive when they figured out we were now have to pay for this stuff. And, they were knocking on my door constantly. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so, we, again, because we had the numbers to back it up, we went and said, okay, we're going to establish policies. We're going to establish, what are the credit limits based on the role that you have in the organization. And we're going to monitor this. It's actually only been out a month. So in the month, we're going to review the usage statistics and see if we need to make adjustments. But for us to say, no, you can no longer use Cowork, we would have probably had a riot on our hands.
A mutiny. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you, there's a lot of noise at the minute, isn't there, about open weight models, especially with the Chinese influence. Do you see a lot of companies going down that route at the minute, or is it too early days for moving away from a cloud-based provider?
I think the serious enterprises understand that there's a lot of risk in doing that, and they want to stick with the, it's kind of the mentality of the 1980s, right? You never bet against IBM, right? You want to go with a system that has the controls in place and has the visibility and is already embedded in the applications people use every day. I think some of the smaller companies who are less risk averse are definitely looking at some of these models and how to use them. I just think it's probably the nature of some of these companies where they have younger leaders who, have been messing around with this kind of stuff their whole lives. I think it's great. I think it's great for the market. I think it's great for competition. I think it's great for the future of AI. And it's tough to make predictions. I always kind of bristle with that because it's like, who knows, right? What is it going to look like in 5 years from now? We can make lots of prognostications, but if anybody tells you they know exactly, they're making it up.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, when ChatGPT came out at the end of 2022, and I don't think, well, I certainly, when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, this is going to change everything, but I didn't anticipate it changing as much, as quick as what it has done, especially, like you said, comparing your day now versus 12 months ago, it's going to be completely different, isn't it? So, yeah,
Absolutely.
Next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be, might be sat on a beach working a lot more than I am now, but... yeah, absolutely. Okay, look, that's been really interesting as your take on things. And just before I move on to the kind of 3 takeaways, there's obviously in the UK, it's kind of AI is obviously there. People are adopting it, and I think overall the sentiment is quite positive to it. I was at an event the other week, and it was Mustafa Suleyman from Microsoft. It was something about humanity and AI, and it was more of a philosophical take on it.
Right.
And I just wondered. Obviously, the room was, I think, 2/3 of the room were quite positive of what AI is going to do for us and the benefit side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, in the media, certainly a lot of what I see on the media is in America, where everyone's protesting data centers and job cuts. And is the sentiment quite as black and white as that at the minute in the States?
I think it's very complicated.
Yeah.
And quite honest, that's exactly what my new book is going to be all about. It's actually fiction almost. It follows a family that mirrors mine in many ways, discussing how this is impacting people of different generations, people of different philosophical bents, different industries, society, government. And I don't want to dismiss people who are anxious about these tools or skeptical or potentially even are very guarded about the intentions of some of these organizations that are growing massively by the minute about how are they affecting what they do and also their communities. What I hope to see is more rational, level-headed thinking. And I have the skeptics in my own family. So we get into these very passionate conversations about whether AI is beneficial or harmful to society. And there's plenty of examples on either side. But I think in the sum total, we are on this, we're on this journey now, and you can't turn this ship around. So we really need to learn how to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the way that this technology is progressing and everybody has a voice. And, that for the people that are negatively affected, we're finding ways to make sure that they're landing. There's a soft landing for them, and so I'm encouraged to see that there is a movement in the industry to start thinking about this and actually putting together groups to help displaced workers. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Okay, look, thank you for that. That's been really, really insightful. And the kind of second part of the show is where I ask if you have, or whether you have three kind of key takeaways for a business leader listening to this who wants to take the next step on AI, or it could be a random fact on a yoga pose, whatever you really want to share today, I suppose. But
no yoga poses.
No yoga poses. Okay.
No, not today.
But yeah, just 3 key takeaways that you're thinking about.
So the first thing I would tell anyone, whether it's an IT director or a C-level person or even a board of directors for an organization, don't get caught up in the rat race. Don't feel that you need to move faster than you are currently capable of doing, because you'll invariably probably meet with failure and waste a lot of money. Make sure that you go into this with eyes wide open, and start with the business justification first. Before you start, thinking about tools, thinking about platforms, thinking about what do we want our organization to look like fundamentally 5-10 years from now. And, how does that affect the people that we hire, the people that we currently have on staff, and, what do we expect them to look like? Then and only then, start thinking about how do you want to get there? And I would also say too, if you make these decisions, don't treat them as kind of a secondary initiative. It has to be front and center, and it has to be extremely prioritized. At the point where I said before, you need to have someone who is responsible for the outcomes and for the driving the initiative forward and the strategy. And then lastly, be willing to listen to your users and your teams as it relates to the change and how it is affecting them. Take their feelings in consideration, and consider how it's affecting them, and make sure that you bring them along on this journey. In certain industries, it can be seen as there's a lot of resistance because they're fairly traditional industries. And so, there's already a lot of anxiety as to this is going to replace me. I'm going to lose my job. Really, you should be explaining exactly, what the expectations for how you're going to leverage the technology. We're not using it. For instance, in our charter, we're very clear. We're not using this to reduce headcount. We're using this to be able to stay competitive and also make the lives of our employees significantly better by empowering them with these tools to do better work and to be able to do more and more creative and more interesting things.
Yeah. Look, that's a really strong ending. Absolutely, I think that certainly echoes where my head is on it, because I've been part of organizations where we've offshored work to other parts of the globe, and you can kind of see the parallels if it's not handled well and people start using AI and like, are they going to replace me? Am I training my replacement, even though it's not a person? So absolutely listening to them and making it clear from the outset what exactly you're doing it for and what it's going to benefit them or how it's going to change.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
One interesting statistic I just read, and I can't recall where it was from, but it was a study done relative to companies that have adopted AI and are being intentional with it versus companies that haven't, and looking at their employee headcount over the last 3 years. And it's the companies that are actually embracing AI that are growing headcount, not so it's kind of challenging everything we're thinking about, what it means to be able to, the workforce in the future.
Yeah, positive note to end on. Look, where's the best place for people to reach out to you, Jim, and learn more about you?
Yeah, probably the simplest way for people to reach out is my brand new website that just stood up last week, which is my last name, Spignardo.com, Spignardo.com. And I have pretty much everything I do across all various platforms there. I have an archive of all of my articles from LinkedIn, my 10 most recent podcasts, the book, as well as some projects that I'm working on that I've published to GitHub. So that's going to be kind of the home base for all of the things that I'm working on.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I have had a look at it today, actually, just before we jumped onto this call with the root it and the focus trace GitHub repositories that you put on there. Yep. So I need to have a look at that myself, but they do look very good, especially the root it one, absolutely, to figure out which is the best one to use. But fantastic. Look, thank you very much for your time, Jim. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Martin.
And we'll end it there. If you found this useful, hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already, and a review or rating genuinely helps the show, and I do appreciate it. And it keeps my mum happy. There is a growing number of resources at the AILeaderLab.com for leaders who are looking to start implementing AI in their workplace. The link will be in the show notes. Until next time, bye-bye for now.